What's going on, everybody, and welcome to what is easily one of the most fun videos I've ever put together, my full ranking of all 8 Final Destination premonitions across the franchise. Now if you're a fan of horror, suspense, or honestly, just completely insane Rube Goldberg-style chaos, then you already know that Final Destination is one of the most uniquely entertaining horror franchises out there. It's not about a guy in a mask, a haunted house, or some ancient curse. It's about death itself playing puppet master. But if there's one thing that's become the undisputed signature of these films, the moment you just know things are about to go off the rails, it's the opening premonition scene. Every single movie in this series kicks off with a massive, over-the-top, horrifying disaster that just absolutely sets the tone. These aren't just cool opening scenes, they are the heart and soul of Final Destination. It's the moment where the main character has a sudden, vivid vision of an impending tragedy, sees everyone around them die in the most gruesome ways possible, and then jolts back to reality with just enough time to prevent it from happening. It's like a horror movie speedrun of chaos, and every time, it makes you rethink your next visit to a racetrack, an airport, a roller coaster, or even just sitting at a red light. These premonitions are always the biggest set pieces of the movie, and in most cases, they end up being the highlight. Some are incredibly well directed, with great pacing, practical effects, and real tension. Others kind of miss the mark, either due to weak CGI, confusing editing, or just a general lack of build-up or payoff. But no matter what, they always leave some kind of impression. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking all 8 of the franchise's major premonition scenes from the weakest one that barely made a dent, all the way up to the absolute best of the best. The ones that nailed the suspense, the visuals, the tension, and honestly made you stare at your surroundings just a little differently after watching them. I'll be judging each premonition based on a few things: how well it's executed from a technical standpoint like direction, editing, sound design, and effects, how memorable it is, and how well it sets the tone for the rest of the movie. Because in this series, that first vision isn't just the beginning, it's the blueprint for everything that follows. Some of these scenes are jaw-dropping in the best way. Some are so iconic they've practically entered pop culture all on their own. And then, there are a couple that just didn't quite deliver. But what I love about doing this ranking is that every entry still brings something to the table. Whether it's a massive highway pileup, a horrifying roller coaster malfunction, or a slow building collapse in a fancy restaurant, each vision plays into a specific fear. It's part of what makes these movies so fun and sometimes genuinely nerve-wracking to watch. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it. These are the 8 Final Destination premonitions, ranked from worst to best. Kicking off the list at the very bottom, we've got the infamous NASCAR crash from the Final Destination, and honestly, calling this one a disappointment feels like an understatement. Right from the start, the scene feels awkward. You've got this huge stadium full of people, the roar of engines, the anticipation of a thrilling race, and then it just completely fumbles the execution. The CGI in this sequence is not just bad for the time, it's straight up distracting. Everything looks rubbery and artificial, like a cutscene from a mid-2000s video game. The editing is all over the place, with shots cutting too quickly to build any real suspense, and the way the deaths are staged makes it hard to care about what's happening. The potential for a terrifying chain reaction of metal, fire, and panic is there, but it all just feels weightless. Worse than that, there's no real build-up. You don't feel the tension slowly tightening around the characters. It just kind of happens. The disaster kicks off, and within seconds it devolves into a mess of cartoonish gore and pixelated debris. And while the Final Destination series is known for its over-the-top death scenes, this one tips too far into ridiculous territory. It doesn't feel horrifying, it feels silly. For a franchise that thrives on suspense and visual storytelling, this opening lands with a dull thud. It sets the wrong tone for the movie, and it's one of the few times the premonition feels more like a chore than a thrilling opener. Definitely the weakest of the bunch. Coming in just one spot above is the theater explosion, also from the Final Destination. Yeah, not a great showing for this entry. This scene isn't as offensively bad as the NASCAR crash, but it's so forgettable that it barely qualifies as a premonition at all. It shows up late in the movie, right when things should be building to a climax, but instead it just kind of happens and then gets brushed aside. There's almost no setup. We cut to the vision, see the explosion happen, and then it's over. before you even have time to process it. No tension, no creative deaths, and no standout visuals. It feels like a last-minute addition rather than a fully formed sequence. And that's the big issue. Final Destination works best when it takes time to build suspense, to tease out each domino in the chain reaction before knocking them down. This scene skips all of that. It's like someone lit a firecracker under the script and said, "That'll do." If you watched the movie once and forgot this scene even existed, honestly, I don't blame you. Coming in at number 6 is the subway premonition at the end of Final Destination 3. Now this one's interesting. Because it is a solid scene in concept, it has the tight claustrophobic setting, the frantic chaos of a train going off the rails, and some pretty intense moments. But what holds it back from ranking higher is where it shows up in the movie, right at the end. Unlike the usual massive opening disaster, this one is part of a second, last-minute vision meant to close things out. So while it's directed well and has a few strong visual beats, it doesn't leave the same impact. There's less build-up, less emotional weight, and it plays more like a final twist than a full-blown premonition. That said, there are things to like. The sound design is chaotic in a good way. You really feel the screeching metal, the momentum of the train as it spirals into the disaster. The scene does a great job selling the inevitability of death even when it's delayed. It just doesn't hit the same peak as the franchise's best. Solid, but middle of the pack. At number 5 is the new addition, which is the Sky Tower collapse from Final Destination, BLOODLINES. While this movie as a whole has sparked some debate, there's no question that the opening disaster delivers in a big way. First off, the location is genius. You've got this sleek, glass-filled skyscraper setting, filled with tension from the moment people sit down for dinner. You start to notice the little things, like a waiter bumping into a loose panel, a crack forming on the ceiling, a support bolt slipping out of place. The tension builds slowly, piece by piece, until suddenly it all collapses in a brutally believable way. What sets this one apart is how grounded it feels. The direction is tight, the cinematography captures the vertical scale of the setting, and the actual collapse plays out like a horrifying domino effect. There's a great sense of scale and motion to the destruction. It doesn't just blow up for no reason. You see the process unfold. It's also one of the more emotionally driven openings. You get just enough time with the characters to care when things go sideways. It's not perfect, but it's creative, well executed, and it shows the franchise still has some fresh ideas. A strong mid-tier contender. Kicking off our top 4 is the highway pileup from Final Destination 2. This is one of those scenes that transcended the movie it came from and became a full-blown pop culture moment. If you've ever felt uneasy driving behind a log truck on the freeway, you can thank this scene. What makes this premonition so effective is how real it feels. The film doesn't rush into the crash. It builds it slowly, starting with a simple drive, layering in little warning signs, and then letting the chaos unravel piece by piece. It escalates in the best way. A tire blows out, a log rolls off a truck, a car flips, and then it becomes a brutal chain reaction of fire, metal, and mayhem. The use of practical effects here is key. There's a weight to everything. You feel the crashes. You see the glass shatter, the explosions happen in camera, and the stunt work is top tier. It's fast, brutal, and most importantly, it sticks with you. Even 20 years later, this scene still gets referenced. It's just that iconic. If it weren't for a few slightly cheesy moments, this might have cracked the top 3. Coming in strong at number 3 is the massive suspension bridge collapse from Final Destination 5, and honestly, this one is beautiful in its chaos. Visually, this might be the best-looking sequence in the entire franchise. The effects are sharp, the direction is confident, and the overall pacing of the scene is masterful. It starts off calmly enough, a group of coworkers stuck in traffic on a bridge, but once the cracks start showing, literally the tension skyrockets. The bridge doesn't just snap in half all at once. It breaks down slowly, giving you time to watch each character struggle to survive. And the deaths here are some of the most creative and painful looking in the entire series. What really elevates this scene is the balance between wide-scale disaster and intimate terror. You get sweeping shots of the bridge collapsing into the river, but you also get close-ups of people falling, being impaled, or getting crushed. It's brutal and unrelenting, but never sloppy. It's also a Great fake out. Just when you think it's over, the main character snaps back into reality. That's a classic Final Destination move, and it's pulled off perfectly here. Definitely one of the most thrilling and cinematic premonitions in the franchise. Our runner-up is the Flight 180 premonition scene, the one that started it all. The plane explosion from the very first Final Destination still stands as one of the most iconic and memorable openings in the franchise. It's the scene that introduced the entire concept, and it does so with such immediate tension and dread that it's hard not to be sucked in. Everything from the uneasy build-up at the airport to the sudden, explosive chaos on board just hits perfectly. Even after all these years, this sequence still holds up as one of the most effective and intense the series has ever delivered. It's simple, brutal, and absolutely terrifying in a grounded way. No over-the-top spectacle, just raw panic and a very real fear of flying, which is exactly why it works so well. But coming in at number 1 is easily the roller coaster premonition from Final Destination 3. This is peak Final Destination. Everything about this sequence works. The setting, the build-up, the payoff, it's all firing on every cylinder. Roller coasters are supposed to be thrilling because they feel dangerous but aren't. This scene flips that completely on its head. You've got the claustrophobic seats, the rattling chains, the screeching metal, and the growing realization that something is very wrong. The camera lingers just long enough to let you feel the anxiety. The drops and curves aren't just thrilling, they're life-threatening. And once the coaster malfunctions, it's pure cinematic carnage. People getting flung off the tracks, crushed by the cars, thrown into the steel supports. It's brutal, chaotic, and brilliantly staged. The sound design is phenomenal. You can feel every twist and snap. What really makes this premonition shine is how emotionally intense it is. You care about the characters, the vision is horrifyingly vivid, and the whole thing is edited to perfection. It sets the bar for every premonition that followed, and to this day, it remains unmatched. So that's my ranking of all 8 Final Destination premonitions. Let me know how you'd rank them in the comments, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.